We begin in eastern Libya, where thousands have died in devastating floods and more than 10,000 are still missing.
Greetings. Today is September 13th, 2023. The time now is 12:44 in the p.m. here in Mama Africa. Eastern Libya. Authorities say 2,000 dead in flood, thousands missing.
Authorities in eastern Libya say thousands of people are dead after a massive flood tore through the city of Derna, with thousands more feared missing.
Benghazi, September the 11th. Authorities in eastern Libya said at least 2,000 people were killed and thousands more were missing after a massive flood ripped through the city of Derna following a heavy storm and rain. Ahmed Mizmari, the spokesperson for the Libyan National Army, LNA, that controls eastern Libya, said in a televised news conference that the disaster came after dams above Derna had collapsed, quote, sweeping whole neighborhoods with their residents into the sea, unquote. Ms. Mari put the numbers of missing at 5,000 to 6,000. Earlier on Monday, the head of the Red Crescent aid group in the region had said Derna death toll was at 150 and expected to hit 250. Reuters could not immediately verify either figure. Libya is politically divided between East and West, and public services have crumbled since a 2011 NATO-backed uprising that prompted years of conflict. The internationally recognized government in Tripoli does not control eastern areas. In Tripoli, the three-person presidential council, which functions as head of state in the divided country, asks the international community to help. Quote, we call on brotherly and friendly countries and international organizations to provide assistance, unquote, it said. Osama Hamad, the head of a parallel Eastern-based administration, told local television that more than 2,000 were dead and thousands more missing. After pummeling Greece last week, Storm Daniel swept in over the Mediterranean on Sunday, swamping roads and destroying buildings in Derna and hitting other settlements along the coast, including Libya, second biggest city of Benghazi. Videos of Derna showed a wide torrent running through the city center where a far narrower waterway had previously flowed. Ruined buildings stood on either side. Eastern Libya Almost Cabal TV broadcast footage that showed people stranded on the roof of their vehicles calling for help and waters washing away cars. Quote, the missing are in the thousands and the dead exceed 2,000, unquote, Osama Hamed told Al-Masa TV. Quote, entire neighborhoods in Derna have disappeared, along with their residents, swept away by the water, unquote. Quote, entire neighborhoods in Derna have disappeared, along with their residents, swept away by water, unquote. Ms. Mari says 7 members of the LNA have died in the flood. Derna resident Sila El Kubadi said he had managed to flee with his family, though houses in a valley near the city had collapsed. Quote, people were asleep and woke up and found their homes surrounded by water, unquote, he told Reuters. Ahmed Mohammed, another resident, said, quote, we were asleep, and when we woke up, we found water besieging the house. We were inside and trying to get out, unquote. Witness said the water level had reached 3 meters. West of Derna, visuals show a collapsed road between the port town of Sasso and Shahat, home to the Greek-founded and UNESCO-listed archaeological site Cyrene. Libya's eastern-based parliament declared 3 days of mourning. Abdullah Hamad El Baha, Prime Minister of the interim government in Tripoli, also declared 3 days of mourning in all the affected cities, calling them, quote, disaster areas, unquote. 4 major oil ports in Libya, Ras Lunath, Zutina, Brega, and El Sidara, were closed from Saturday evening for 3 days, 2 oil engineers told Reuters. Search and rescue operations were ongoing, witnesses said. Authorities declared a state of extreme emergency, closing schools and stores and imposing a curfew. In Tripoli, the interim government directed all state agencies to, quote, immediately deal, unquote, with the damage and the floods in eastern cities, but the administration has no sway in the east. However, DBEIBAH' government works closely with the Central Bank of Libya, which disperses funds to government departments across the country. The United Nations in Libya said it was following the storm closely and would, quote, provide urgent relief, assistance, and support of response efforts at local and national levels, unquote. Qatar Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani instructed the government to send aid to the affected areas in eastern Libya, Qatar state news agency reported.
We begin in eastern Libya, where thousands have died in devastating floods and more than 10,000 are still missing. On Sunday, more rain fell in one day than over the past 40 years. It burst 2 dams upstream, channeling a wave of destruction towards the port city of Derna. Michael Apple reports.
A witness to the disaster points to where the flooding that would devastate Derna was unleashed. 2 dams holding huge amounts of water burst, sending a wave towards the city. Satellite imagery shows them before the floods. The first dam was 12 kilometers upstream. The second dam was on the city's outskirts. When the dam walls crumbled, almost like a reverse tsunami, the water cut through Derna's neighborhoods, destroying bridges, roads and homes, sweeping residents out to sea as the waves struck the low-lying coastal town. Derna had a population of around 100,000. The human cost of the disaster is still being counted.
The death toll is huge. It might reach 2,000 really, but we don't have a definite number right now. Maybe later today or maximum by early morning tomorrow, we'll have definite numbers that will be ready to share.
Libya has 2 governments. The leader of the Eastern administration in Tobruk says the immediate focus is on emergency response.
لتشكيل لجنة متخصصة.
We have directed the government to form a specialized committee to assess the damage, instantly begin the reconstruction of roads to facilitate transportation, restore the electricity, and to take all immediate and needed measures in that regard.
Aid is already beginning to arrive at nearby airports as the scale of the catastrophe becomes clearer. Mike Leppel, Al Jazeera.
Well, aid is beginning to arrive to help flood victims in Libya. Turkey has sent 3 plane loads. Around 170 rescue personnel from the Turkish Disaster Management Authority were on board. They landed in Benghazi a short while ago. Let's go live to Resul Serdar, our correspondent in Istanbul. So what aid is Turkey sending, Resul?
Well, it's quite a wide range of package of the aid that has been sent, where 3 military planes, Turkish planes, that landed in Benghazi under the forces loyal to Khalifa Haftar. So according to the Disaster and Emergency Management Authority of Turkey, they say that they have sent 168 surface and underwater search and rescue personnel. They have sent the rescue vehicles and boats, raincoats, the food, hygiene kits, generators, blankets, and also the tents and so on. And they say that this is the first response to the international aid call made by the Libyan government. And they say that in the coming days, they're going to even provide more.
Yeah. Why is Turkey, Resul, one of the first countries to send aid to Libya?
Well, there are several reasons for that: geopolitical reasons, economic reasons, and also the business reasons, the other reasons as well. So one of the first is that Turkey is one of the key allies of Tripoli-based government particularly, and keeping that relations good with Tripoli is quite essential for Turkey, particularly when it comes to its position in the East Mediterranean, which Turkey is in a competition with France and Greece. So that's why it's very much important geopolitically. On the other hand, so Turkey has huge investments in Libya, particularly Turkish construction companies. The scale of their investment is tremendous. And also Turkey is trying to seize this as an opportunity to develop an aid diplomacy, particularly with Benghazi-based government, which is led by Khalifa Haftar. And Turkey, particularly since 2018 on, have been on bad terms with, and now they're trying to seize this as an opportunity that they can build the relations with Benghazi as well. And also, on the other hand, humanitarian reasons as well. Just around 7 months ago, Turkey had one of the largest, the biggest disaster in its recent memory. 11 eastern cities of Turkey, they have been hit by 2 powerful earthquakes, and 50,000 people died. And also then we have seen the wildfires across the country, then the floods as well. So Turkey is very much used to these natural disasters. They have a personnel that is thousands of personnel that are trained in that sense. And so that's why Turkey has been one of the first countries to respond to the international aid call made by the Libyan government.
Resul Serdar in Istanbul, thank you. All right, an update now on our top story on Al Jazeera this hour and the floods in Libya. We can confirm that the death toll from those devastating floods in eastern Libya has risen significantly. Let's bring in our correspondent, Malik Trainer in Tripoli. Malik, what are the latest figures?
Well, according to Issam Abu Zreba, he's the Minister of Interior in the parallel government in eastern Libya. He's now stated that the death toll in the city of Derna has risen to over 5,200. Now, we haven't had, international organizations or the Libyan Red Crescent confirm those numbers. But listen, we spoke to the Libyan Red Crescent earlier, and they told us more than 2,000 confirmed deaths and more than 9,000, nearly 10,000 people registered as missing. So, officials here expect the death toll to be around 10,000. I mean, it just shows the devastation that the city of Derna faced due to Storm Daniel. I mean, Folly, cities like Derna here in Libya are very close-knit communities. So you'll have, a block in a neighborhood that just one family, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters will all live. I mean, we've heard of stories of families losing 71 families, 70 members. So the situation is dire. It's desperate. But I think in the coming hours or days, as authorities are able to reach the city, we'll be able to understand the devastation more clearly, as well as the death toll and the number of people who were injured or suffered due to this flood.
So just to remind our viewers, a significant development in eastern Libya. Authorities in the east of Libya saying that the death toll now in just the city of Derna after these devastating floods has risen to over 5,200, as Malik was telling us there. Aid, I understand, has been coming in from a number of countries, including Algeria. But how long, Malik, until it gets to Derna and those affected areas?
So I spoke just about an hour ago to a volunteer who was part of a convoy trying to reach Derna. The communications are very, it's very hard to talk to people in Derna. The communication lines are terrible at the moment. But he told me he expects that they will be able to reach the city within hours. If that's possible, we're just going to have to wait and see. But the hope is that this aid and logistical support can reach these people as soon as possible.
Malik, thank you very much. Again, a considerable rise in the death toll in eastern Libya, where 5,200 people have now been confirmed dead there by the authorities in the aftermath of the devastating floods there. Malik Trainer, thank you very much for the update. Let's now get an update on Storm Daniel from our weather presenter, Kara, and the impact on Libya, Kara, and what's next in the coming days.
Well, the good news is that it has weakened dramatically and fallen apart as it moved from Libya into Egypt. But it was a very powerful system with a pretty nasty history that began last week in the southeast of Europe. It caused flooding in Turkey as well as Bulgaria and Greece. Torrential rain, about 6 months worth, fell in 2 days, and that turned villages into lakes. Now, it sat in the Mediterranean, pulling into the weekend further south into northern areas of eastern Libya. There it is, edging in, bringing exceptional amounts of rain. Now, we don't have a lot of data for this area of the world. We do know, however, that Benghazi gets about 3 millimeters of rain on average in September. Well, to the east of that, a city received on Sunday into Monday 140 millimeters in just 12 hours. That caused the rivers to flood, the dams to collapse, and of course, that lethal flash flood. The good news is the storm moved very quickly out east to Egypt, taking heavy rain, not as heavy as what we saw in Libya. Some very powerful winds, though. We are expecting some pretty nasty sandstorms, but behind it, clearer skies, which is good news for places that have been the worst hit, and those recovery efforts are now underway.
Kara, thank you very much for that. Now, joining us to speak more about the situation in Libya is Hani Shanib, who's president of the National Council on U.S.-Libya Relations, and he's originally from Derna, the city hardest hit by these floods. He's joining us from Phoenix, Arizona, in the U.S. Thank you so much for being with us, Mr. Shanib. I know you've been speaking to friends and family in Derna. And are you getting, first, a clear picture of the scale of this disaster?
Well, thank you for having me. Frankly speaking, Derna is truly besieged by its own nature of geography. It is actually wedged under the mountain, the Green Mountain in Libya. And with the tragedy that has happened, they have lost pretty much connection with the rest of the world. To prove this, it took about 24 hours at least to appreciate the intensity of the damage that has occurred in Derna. Up until now, they still do not have communications with the outside. Aid that is supposed to be coming into Derna is trickling in a dismal manner. It is really stuck on the road. Almost all the roads are closed, right, totally destroyed, and there is no access to the city.
Right.
The numbers are still going up, and as you recall, it was 160 yesterday morning when I announced that it was 2,000 and more. And through my communications with friends and relatives, I have lost many of our own family in there. and we're still looking for many others. But the estimates are going to be increasing by the minute as they are excavating and pulling out bodies. They are in desperate status at this point. There is very, very minimal and slow aid that is coming in. They have not seen the Turkish supplies coming into there. They have not seen any significant donations. The United States of America, in its might, is trying to put and assemble something. But so far, the donation from the United States has only been $100,000, which is absolutely dismal for this status.
Indeed. And a number of countries, including Turkey, as we've heard, Algeria, also sending in aid. But the question is, who is leading the response on the ground? Because, of course, Libya is governed by two rival administrations, one in the east and one in the west. What's the administration in the east, led by warlord Khalifa Haftar, doing to help those in need?
Absolutely. This is a very good question. The divide in Libya has a major impact on how services are provided, including disaster relief. There's a huge resentment and a fracture between the two sides, the East and the West. There is a resentment even in the streets as to why has the East been neglected all this time. And there is procrastination in trying to resolve the financial dispute between the East and the West, to the extent that even individuals and groups that are trying to help from the West, bringing in through basic cars, private cars, and so on, are not very well received in the East. You would expect that there would be some more support and understanding, but this is not happening because of the historical fracture that has existed. That is definitely impacting. Coordination on the ground, to answer your specific question, there is a lack of human capacity in Libya, including in the systems that are providing the relief at this point. I just read the report by the Red Crescent, and it is incomplete and it is very poorly prepared. So if the locals are unable to deliver proper reports and requirements, it is surprising and is not surprising to see that the support from the international community is limited.
Dr. Shanib, just a quick question. You talked about the East being neglected, and the two dams in Derna were constantly said to be flooding the city even before Storm Daniel. Can you tell us more about the situation in the East, the infrastructure, what it's like there, and why people feel they are being neglected and marginalized compared to the rest of the country?
Absolutely. As a physician that has been constantly providing missions to Libya, and I've visited Derna quite frequently, I have been shocked that a city of 100,000 people draining 150,000 does not have a single hospital that is functioning. The only hospital that is functioning in Derna today is a rented villa that has 5 bedrooms, providing the services to the population. This is not new. This has been going on for 42 years. It has caused the alienations and the political turmoil since the days of Gaddafi. Every Minister of Health and Prime Minister will drop by Derna, will make statements about supporting the city and then ignoring it completely. This is the straw that has broken the camel's back. The erosion in the dams in Derna are not new. They have been reported repeatedly, including in scientific journals from 2008, 2011, and moving on. No official has paid attention to it. And the notifications had been made repeatedly that this has to be done urgently. This is not just a natural disaster. This is a human disaster as well, as a result of the neglect of the city.
Dr. Hani Shanib, thank you so very much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your views there with us. Dr. Hani Shanib is president of the National Council on U.S.-Libya Relations, joining us there from the U.S. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.